Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, folks? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great to have you all with us. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis today, and we've got a busy show. Got to get to last night's action in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Dallas with a monster third period coming back to beat the Edmonton Oilers. And we'll also talk more end of the season for the Winnipeg Jets. Rewucki will pop by. We'll also have Ken Wiebe. And as we get closer to the Bombers opening up their preseason on the weekend, Josh Frey-Sam from the Winnipeg Free Press will get us up to date on what has been going on at Winnipeg Blue Bombers training camp. So it should be a fun one. Of course, still going through the aftermath of the Winnipeg Jets season. We've got some more really interesting stuff from both Coach Scott Arniel as well as Kevin Cheveldayoff, which we'll get to before we talk about it with Brandon and Ken a little bit later on the program. Of course, great to have you all with us. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure, if you're popping by on YouTube, you give it a thumbs up. For all you podcast listeners, I never say this, but it is a big help to us if you go on to whatever you're getting WST on your podcasting platform and just give us a nice little 5-star rating and a little review for the fellas. Always helps us out, spread the channel. Thank you in advance. Speaking of thank yous, thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Prairie Toyota Dealers, Ben Moss, Rolly's Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Manitoba Battery and Canadian Club, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug, The Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend. We'll get to fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. And, of course, a Why Not question of the day for Not Auto Corp at Waverly and McGillivray. Michael Remis, what's up?
Hey, I'm ready to start the show. I got my glasses to start, unlike yesterday. Feeling good, although I was talking with you before we went live. We're watching the Western Conference Final last night, and, man, the Dallas Stars, just watching them on the ice. A lot of bad memories being brought up, especially when they're scoring all those goals and you kept hearing their goal song. I used to
Dallas Stars, Dallas Stars. I listen, after being in that building for game 3 and 4, and I mean, I was out last night at a place with the sound cranked for the game, and it was just over and over again in the third period, and it literally brought me right back to a couple of sad walks out of American Airlines Center last week in games 3 and 4. Was a pretty wild game. I mean, man, did the Oilers look good through 40 minutes. And man, did they look not so good in the final 20. And to be honest, this was very similar to the Winnipeg series in that I think at 5-on-5, it was Winnipeg, and in this case, Edmonton, that was the better team. But much like the Jets, got into penalty trouble, could not kill those penalties. And the Dallas Stars doing a complete reversal in the third period, scoring 5 straight to get first blood in their series. Huge win for Dallas. I do actually think, though, Edmonton is still in a pretty good spot. I was really impressed with what I heard from Leon Draisaitl after the game. Coach Chris Knobloch did not seem like there was a lot of panic around the Oilers. And when you think about what they've already been through this playoff run alone, considering what happened in the first round, I don't think they should be. The bottom line is Draisaitl looked unreal. McDavid was flying. This is still a very winnable series for the Edmonton Oilers, in my opinion.
I'm not counting out Edmonton. They came back down 3-0 last year in the Stanley Cup Finals, so we'll wait and see. Dallas did get game 1, but I couldn't help but notice, in the first period, every time a Dallas player touched the puck, Chris Cuthbert's like, oh, there's Thomas Harley. He scored the game winner in game 6 against Winnipeg. I'm like, thanks a lot, Chris. And he's like, oh, Sam Steele's carrying it up the ice, scored the tying goal in game 6. I'm like, great, yeah, thanks a lot. Bringing back some good memories. I used to love the Pantera Dallas Stars goal song, but yeah, it just reminds me of Alex Petrovic kicking the puck into the net. So, look, we're trying to move past the end of the season. We're making our way through the year-end comments, but watching Dallas beat Edmonton, it does gives you like a what could have been if the Jets were able to force a game 7, or if they did, win game 1, or were able to beat Ottinger in game 4. Take your pick. I think the Jets would be able to compete with Edmonton here if things went differently, but they didn't. And we're here talking about another season, great year nonetheless. Very nice note from Mark Chipman here, sent out today actually, and the conference final. And hey, you got draft talk coming up, UFA speculation. We put out our first Nikolai Ehlers video of the summer. You and Murat from yesterday. I cut it a nice 14-minute chunk on YouTube. Already doing very well. So Ehlers, we're taking submissions. We had Dubois drama, Trotz watch, whatever was going on with Rutger, and now Ehlers. That's the new one. It's going to boost our channel into the stratosphere.
Here's your title for the next one.
Okay.
Ehlers extension?
Yes. Question mark?
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. It.
We'll
yes.
go Ehlers extension. It'll just be me asking all of our guests, so what do you think the chances are that they get a deal done with Ehlers?
Yeah.
And you just compile it. The Ehlers extension. That's the movement right now. It's what we all want to see. Speaking of the man that will be doing the extending, if it is possible, Kevin Cheveldayoff. We'll get to him in just a minute. I mean, we played a couple of the clips from early on in their availability yesterday, but they went through a number of topics. I mean, coming off of this season, as well as Elias Salmonsson, the season that he had, where he projects to be, Dmitry Reshevsky, and then, of course, guys like the captain Adam Lowry and Kyle Connor, who are both eligible for extensions on the 1st of July. So we'll get to all of that. But, tough one for the Oilers. As Tyson Ducharme just mentioned in chat, this is how Dallas won all playoffs. 40 minutes of good hockey is not enough. And one thing we didn't mention yesterday, but Waiters has weighed in on it, the Bang guy is out of jail, and he's back on the glass and is now 1-0 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Definitely a top 3 annoying fan in the entire National Hockey League. Bang glass guy.
I do remember that guy, yes, banging on the glass, and he was in jail for some reason, but he got out.
DUI.
And there he was. Oh, that's what it was. Okay. And, one thing about that game last night, a lot of people calling for Stuart Skinner to be replaced. I mean, some of those goals, there's a Dallas player literally right in front of him. He can't see the puck at all. And we talked about special teams as well. Dallas going 3 for 4 on the power play, and Edmonton's power play or penalty kill was so good last year, allowing 0 power play goals in their conference final last year. 3 power play goals in the third period for Dallas, and getting, I know Mikko Rantanen only had the 1 assist on one of those, but on the go-ahead goal. But that power play, pretty deadly. And we mentioned Tyler Seguin, how he spent more time in the box again in the series against the Jets than scoring goals. Got them on the board with a nice breakaway. I didn't know he still had those kind of wheels there to get their first goal of the series. So
you mentioned those screens on Skinner on the first 2 goals. That's why, last night, and I know there's people mentioning PTSD from the playoffs.
Yeah, a lot.
It was 2 sides to it. I'm sitting there with some friends watching the game, having a beer, and I have to admit, not having the stress of your team playing in the games was actually very freeing. I don't think I'd had just a calm, enjoyable night of hockey watching like that since the regular season. But as we mentioned, with the damn Dallas Stars song playing over and over again as they scored 5 goals, reminded me of being in the building in Dallas when the Jets weren't able to win either game 3 or game 4. But Remis, those goals and the way, the first 2 goals with the screens on Skinner, including one where 4 of the 5 guys in front of the goaltender were Edmonton Oilers, but didn't get a touch of the puck, as well as the quick nature of the turnaround in the game with not 1 goal, but 3 in less than 5 minutes. That actually took me back to the road games against St. Louis, where games were tight and then all of a sudden they weren't in literally the snap of your fingers.
Yeah, Miro Heiskanen's goal to make it 3-2 for Edmonton, Dallas' second goal. I mean, that's just a really nice place wrister from the point with bodies in front, got it through, on net, and in. And Stuart Skinner, he didn't see that, and I agree. That was how goals were scored against the Jets. All playoffs, throw it on net from distance with players in front, and if you can't see it, you can't stop it. So, you know, we're and I'll agree with you too. You know, watching that third period and overtime in Game 6, it was intense. The best part about having a smartwatch is you can see your heart rate.
Oh,
And mine in Game 7 against St. Louis and Game 6 against Dallas. There's some serious nerves there. It was very funny looking at the heart numbers. So a lot more relaxed. We do have a lot of more free time now. Some benefits of the Jets being eliminated.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, it's maybe easier to watch the games, but you'd certainly rather be still in the fight right now. But, you know, just before we get to Cheveldayoff, you mentioned that note from Mark Chipman that was put out, and I'm sure some people have seen it, but if you haven't, this is what was posted and sent to just fans of the Winnipeg Jets. The past several weeks of playoff hockey created a wide range of emotions for all of us. We witnessed the remarkable resilience of our team and an unparalleled display of courage by Mark Scheifele. As I reflected on it all, including the success of the regular season and our first President's Trophy, I was struck by an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the support, passion, and class of our incredible fans. Once again, the whiteout was on display, and we could feel the energy at Canada Life Centre, on Donald Street, and from living rooms across this province and around the world like never before. Every team in professional sports lays claim to having the best fans. I believe from the bottom of my heart that we actually do. So on behalf of everyone at True North and the Winnipeg Jets, thank you for standing with us every step of the way. Please know our commitment to bringing a Stanley Cup to our city has never been stronger. Your support means everything, and we look forward to continuing this journey together with sincere gratitude. Mark J. Chipman. So, you know, right from the top, I think a very sincere message of appreciation for, you know, the fans that came together like I don't want to say like never before, because it has been like this, but man, it definitely was special. You know that the entire organization is gutted the fact that they're not playing the Oilers right now. But as we heard from Kevin Cheveldayoff and Scott Arniel, definitely a focus to keep pushing this thing forward into next year when we get to this time, be competing in the conference finals and hopefully taking a run at a Stanley Cup as well. So I know there was a lot of people that, you know, I really appreciated that message from Mark, but I think the real appreciation is coming the other way because of the way fans stood with this team throughout the season and certainly through that memorable playoff run.
Yeah, I think they're very proud of the way that they went out. I think you're disappointed that it ended earlier than they would have liked, but in the face of incredible adversity there, the team put their best foot forward in Game 6 and took Dallas Stars to overtime and were that close to forcing a Game 7. There was some interesting comments yesterday, Huss, about Scott Arniel, you know, looking back on certain moments where, you know, maybe he wishes things would have went differently or they had an opportunity to flip the script. And I think some players on the team have already mentioned that as well. I think the loss, you know, going out early hit them hard. And last year last year was different as well, where they vowed to come back 10% better. You know, they're going to all meet, you know, in the next couple of weeks and decide, okay, how are they going to come back from this? And there's also some big decisions to be made in terms of the roster. So I'm curious what this Jets team will look like, but certainly, you know, that was a nice message from Mark Chipman, and I think it did capture everyone's attention. I mean, they were the best team in the regular season, and it's a playoffs where all the division winners are out. None of them are in the conference final, and they're going to learn from this and see, okay, how can we, you know, we came back better this season. What are they going to do now to improve for the 25-26 season?
Hey, listen, winning in this league is not easy. There's a lot of really good teams. We're seeing 4 of them play right now that are still remaining. And, I mean, you got to learn from your experience. You got to learn from the losses and come back better. And I think the Winnipeg Jets absolutely did this past season. And now the challenge will be to keep on pushing this thing forward. We'll hear from Chevy and Arniel in just a minute. Before we do that, let me thank the gang over at Rolly's Transfer for their support of WST. Folks, if you've got a move coming up this summer, hit up the gang at Rolly's. Family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Go to Rollys.com and click on Request an Estimate. Pop in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will get back to you quickly with a great quote and get you locked in for the white glove service for all of your belongings that Rolly's is famous for. For all your moving needs, make it Rolly's. Find out more at Request an Estimate today over at Rollys.com. And hey, shout out to our pal Dr. Terry and his great staff over at St. Vital Dental Center. If it's been a minute since you've seen the dentist, and I always used to hate going to the dentist. I actually love it now. The technology, the equipment is so much better. And listen, there's a lot of smiling faces over at St. Vital Dental Center taking care of generations of Winnipeggers and Manitobans. For all your dental needs, from cleanings to things like dental implants, St. Vital Dental Center has you covered. So check them out online at stvitaldental.ca for all of their services. Make an appointment. Pop by and see them at 167 St. Anne's. Free parking, conveniently located right behind the building. And tell them your friends at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. We've got a nice summer weekend coming up. May long weekend was a dud. However, we can make up for it by getting outside and maybe getting out to the lake. I mean, we're just about in June right now. It is that time of year. And our friends at Canadian Club have the great summer cocktail ready to go for you. And it's already mixed. That's right. The Club Pack, available right now on sale at Manitoba Liquor Marts, has the world-famous Canadian Club and Ginger Ale and the two new cocktails, the Citrus Smash and the Half and Half, which is a little Arnold Palmer with the iconic Canadian Club Canadian whiskey. So when you're popping by your local Manitoba Liquor Marts, grab the Canadian Club, but also check out the May sale right now on the brand new Canadian Club Pack, available at Manitoba Liquor Marts throughout the province. And hey, speaking of, as we talk about summer weekends, how's your camper going? Is your boat ready to go in the water? Do you have your batteries? Listen, it's a busy time to get ready for summer. Do not waste time or money at the big box stores when you can shop local and get the best deals in town on all of your batteries from Manitoba Battery. 2 locations, Logan Avenue, Dover Court Drive, and of course, free delivery on any purchase over $60 inside the perimeter, so you don't even need to leave your house. The one thing you can be guaranteed of is the best service for batteries of all makes and models and the best prices, saving up to $50 a battery for your boats and campers. Find out more today, manitobabattery.com. Give them a call or order online for free delivery today. All right, Remo, let's hear a little bit more from the coach and GM from yesterday. And we'll get into this with Ken and with Brandon as we continue the show. Listen, we're going to be talking a lot about keeping players. Free agency will be a big topic as well. This is 46 if you want to tee it up. This is Cheveldayoff, and he was asked if a season like this can potentially change how the perception of players around the league feel about Winnipeg that haven't been here before.
I don't know if there's one, standard answer there. I think, again, you go back to no trade lists and stuff like that. A lot of our players have no trade lists and have various teams on them. We don't really ask them why, they may choose the 6 to 8 or 10 teams that they have on it, and they all have them for their own, particular reasons. And certainly that's there. For us, I learned early on, you don't dwell on that. You have to, be able to run your organization with the sense of pride that you have. And I think our greatest strength, kind of came on display here in this last, this year in general, is you want to develop a core of players, that care for each other, that, play for each other. I've always believed that, you do that through, drafting them and developing them and growing them and then retaining them. And like I say, for the most part, we've been able to, do that. In the future, we'll see, hopefully that is continuing. But I think, it's the players want to win. We have a goaltender that's the best in the world. Players want to play in a fan base that cares. We got some of the most passionate fans, in the league, and I think that you saw that, you see that on display when we get to the playoffs and the whiteouts and the unique things that just ignite a city and a fan base like that. But I think the real thing is that you get that sense of family with this group of guys, and if you're a player around the league, we heard from so many different people outside of our organization, just, again, the caring and compassion that this group has for each other. And you can never force a player to want to play somewhere, but, I know if I were one of them, I'd want to play in a place where, I matter. I matter to the fans, I matter to my teammates, and I matter to the thought of trying to win a Stanley Cup. And in the future there may be guys that don't want to. We'll move on. We'll find the guys that do, and we'll do our best to make this city proud.
All right, so there's Kevin Cheveldayoff on the perception of the team around the league. And it's funny, and I think it was T1, Sklarty just mentioning in chat that Elliot Friedman mentioned that the Jets have really enhanced their reputation as a destination this year. And I think, everyone, there was only one game on last Saturday when the Jets and Stars played. And I think people learned a lot about what this team was all about, even in a losing cause, certainly with everything that had happened that day with Mark Scheifele. Now, Scott Arniel talked about, the season overall. We touched on some of that yesterday. He was asked also about the playoffs, and listen, when you don't get to your goal, there's always things that I'm sure you reevaluate and think, could you do differently? Arnie was asked on playoff moments that he'd like to have back.
We obviously got off to the start against St. Louis, the game down in there, game 3. Like I mentioned, I really liked how we played for 30 minutes in game 4. I didn't like the stretches and the moments that happened in those road games in games 4 and 6 in St. Louis. There's some things that, whether they were matchups, they're a little harder to do on the road than they are at home. The one that kind of gets me a little bit, and I knew it was coming, was game 1 against Dallas. Coming off the high of game 7, I knew that there was going to be that moment where Dallas and their experience and Pete DeBoer was going to push game 1 at us. He was coming, and they did. We had chances late, especially late in the third, to tie that game up. We didn't. That was a moment lost for us. We played 82 games to get that home ice, and you saw what we did in our building. And so for me, that's one that got away, that first one. I think that just there's moments, there's things that happen. For me, there's areas that you'll look at, whether it's lineup or whether it's matchups or whether little things. But at the end of the day, we put ourselves in a position to get home here for game 7 after having that, not winning game 1. And it didn't happen. And that's kind of sort of grabs at you. That's the part that kind of, really bothers me a bit about that we didn't get that chance to come home for game 7, because I liked our chances.
All right, so there's some introspection from Scott Arniel on the playoffs overall, and we kind of really got into the not being able to get game 1 in round 2. Really ended up being the difference when you think about it, because every other home team, Jets and Stars, held serve between games 2 through 6. And you do wonder about that one that got away. This is Arniel. This is 48, Reem. Arniel, we all talked about last year, hearing, after the loss to Colorado, they made a commitment to be 5 to 10% better. So what's the mission for next year if this year was to get 5 to 10% better?
We had 10 or 15, 20 minutes to talk to every player. The first thing I said to every player is that within 2 weeks here, I'm going to talk to everybody. And I asked Davis and Marty to give me thoughts and ideas on each and every player from this year, for this summer to get better, and then for next year. And then Dean as well did that with our with the D-men, and also those guys both did about the specialty teams. And so I've talked to the players about, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to have more of a in-depth conversation, and it'll be a lot more than 15 minutes. It'll be something that'll not drag on, and it'll be something that'll be very, very beneficial to both myself and to the player. And then from that point forward, we have passed on, the two of us, through these meetings, is that we're not satisfied about what happened, and that next year our goal is to win a Stanley Cup, and so there's a lot of work to be done. I'm not going to say that's because I haven't really got it together yet on what it is. It's the 5%, 10%. I think it has a little bit more to do with that how we played and how we have to play right now is how, because I hear it from teams that have won. I've heard about, I was in Washington the year after they won. I heard about what they had to do for 4 rounds. And so that's some of the knowledge that I'm going to take from sort of listening and watching some of these past, Cup winners. And that's the stuff that we're going to have to kind of, we were pushing to be that 5 to 10% better. Well, that should be already there. Now it's I don't know what is. I don't know what that word is. If it's the compete again, it's the grit, it's it's that not giving up an inch. I'm not sure what that is, that message. You guys will hear that in September, but that's part of my homework here with my staff and with the players is to come up with that.
All right, and here's one more on Arnie, and this is just what he saw from his team, not just in the game, but on the day of Game 6 when the season ended.
The biggest thing for me, talking about Game 6, and that day, it's not just the game itself. That day was a very long day, but the biggest thing that I had and I knew was that I knew our team, how they were going to handle it. Wasn't like we were walking into something we weren't prepared, in the sense of, because we had been a family, because we had cared for each other. It's been growing here the last few years, and I saw it all year long. And I knew how that was going to get handled. I was 99% sure, and they did. They went above and beyond how they handled that Game 6. From the time everybody found out, when I had to tell them in the morning, to the moment or the time after, after we had lost the game, how they handle it, that's how I knew they would handle it, because they had handled stuff not as severe as that, but they handled it as a group. They cared about each other all year long. There's some things that happened that you guys don't know about that happened over the course of the year that they handled unbelievably well amongst each other, and I'm so proud of them from that point, but also obviously what they did in Game 6 and that day. And obviously it just shows how much they care about each other.
So there's Scott Arniel. Now, here's a couple clips from Chevy before we bring in Brandon. And, of course, now that the season is over for the Jets, the focus is on extending Ehlers, UFAs, RFAs. Here's what Chevy had to say about his summer ahead with the expiring contracts of a number of Winnipeg Jets.
Every summer is important, and we've got obviously a couple of RFAs. You touched on a little bit of the UFA. Mason Appleton's UFA as well. We'll have to have obviously different conversations within the organization on some of the younger players, within the organization to see where they're at. Do we have pro scouting meetings coming up here next week, Wednesday, Thursday. Obviously Larry Simmons is an integral part of starting the contract negotiations, with the different players. Spoke to Gabe, spoke to Sammy. Both of them were in exits, here today. And I think the exciting thing for us is that we have some of those kind of players that, are on this side of the 30, plus years. And those are the guys that have capacity to grow. So those are some of the guys that we challenged, kind of the most. The contracts and that's going to take care of itself. We'll work on that. We'll find a way to find common ground. But those are the guys that we're challenging. And we challenged Sandberg last year, obviously saying, look, Brendan Dillon's not coming back. Now's your time. And he took that step. So those are things that, as an organization, proud of. Morgan Barron went from wing to center this year. Those are interesting things that, again, as a group, we're going to have to sit back and talk about. The business side of it, finds a way to take care of itself. And whatever the cards are dealt, with respect to UFAs and finding a way to keep them or not, we'll deal with it.
We did have a number of people, really over the course of the last couple of weeks, firing us messages about 2021 fifth rounder Dmitry Reshevsky. Chevy was asked about Reshevsky's future as well. Here's what he had to say on that.
We've had some conversations with, with his representatives. We actually had a Zoom call with him probably. We were on the road, so I guess it was game 4. Larry Simmons and I, he's got some decisions that he has to make. Obviously, we think he'd be a perfect, fit in our organization here. But again, there's lots of different factors that go into their decisions, and we're still hopeful. I don't really have an update per se to say, what the chances are. But again, we've had good conversations with them, and I guess we'll just see.
So there's a little bit more from Kevin Cheveldayoff. We're going to bring in Brandon Rewucki right away to continue the end of season Jets talk. But do want to let you know that this segment is brought to you by Ben Moss. Ben Moss is proudly Canadian owned and operated with history dating back more than 100 years and has 3 locations in Winnipeg to serve you: Polo Park Shopping Center, St. Vital Center, and Kildonan Place. Committed to customer satisfaction, check out a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, and mined diamonds available with payment plans to suit your needs. For more information, pop by and see him in store or check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, shine bright. Nobody shines brighter than Brandon Rewucki on WST. Let's welcome in the host of Skates and Plates. Rew, what's going on? How are you doing now that we've hit the end of the road for the Jets? I mentioned it was somewhat of a freeing experience to not watch a hockey game with crippling anxiety like we did last night. But where are you at right now in the aftermath of the season? Hold on a sec. We can't hear you.
It's not me.
There we go.
We're good. Now we're good. What's
going on?
Good. Yeah. No. Yeah. Spark. You said all those nice things about me, and then I guess I didn't turn my mic on. So it's the post playoff blues, I guess, I'm dealing with right now. But yeah. No. I mean, yeah. Everything's good. It's interesting too because like you see how these teams perform, especially like on the Western Conference side. I was intrigued to see how the Stars would look against the Oilers, because I still feel like the Jets, not by a large margin, but I still feel like they probably feel hard done by not pushing that to 7. And so it was intriguing to see like how are they going to show up against the Oilers, who since Game 3 of the LA series have morphed into this juggernaut. And then you see what Dallas did against Edmonton, and I don't know if it makes you feel a little bit better, but yeah, hard not to think about some of those opportunities missed in some of those defeats in Dallas in the second round series there. But it's still overall a much more optimistic tone than we had last year at this time.
What a difference a year makes, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy too, where they didn't win that many more games either, like in the grand scheme of things come postseason time. And it's funny too, because it would be a much different tone around this team if they don't pull off the Game 7 miracle a few weeks ago too. But all of that comes into the equation. It's probably the most optimistic, upbeat I felt after a devastating OT loss in quite some time about a team. If you're looking at it, right? Like the harsh reality is this might have been their best chance at a Stanley Cup. Like just the nature of pro sports and hockey in general. But it's also like, I mean, some of the things we saw in Game 6, obviously Scheifele, his whole situation, but just the team as a whole and how they responded. You feel so proud about what they did out there, and then optimistic that 1 or 2 additions and tweaks here, they could be right back at this thing, this time next year. So it's basically the whole spectrum of emotions are kind of filtering through everybody, I think. Right now.
Listen, I mean, emotion was the name. I mean, that was and I mean, listen, you saw how it affected the team, but I mean, sure, it was, I mean, every conversation I had on Saturday leading up to that game was, I mean, like that news hit people, incredibly hard. I mean, whether you're, just a fan, whether you're close to the team, you're working for the team, and certainly the players on the team. And like, I think what we'll take away as much as, the way they, fought right till the end was, the scenes afterwards. The most emotional handshake line I think you'll probably ever see. And then, when Mark finishing up, that entire team waiting for him. And again, we don't need to spend too much time on this, but, there's talking the talk and walking the walk. And we've heard for a long time, oh, the room is great. We've got this great room. Well, it wasn't really the case for a long time. And I think what we saw in front of our eyes and for the entire hockey world to see is that the mission that Rick Bowness started 3 years ago really has come to fruition. And this team and organization is in so much a better place right now, even though they fell short of their goal, which was to still be playing right now and then to get another series and have a parade downtown.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't think it's in bad taste necessarily, but just to kind of, pivot and frame it towards how things are played out in the off season here. I mean, it's a pretty damn good selling point that the Winnipeg Jets can kind of put forth towards free agents, trade targets, guys with NTCs, NMCs, all that stuff. That this is, everybody says our locker room is tight, but you don't see what happened at the end of Game 6 if these guys legitimately didn't care about each other. It is, and you're right there. That'll be Rick Bowness's kind of overarching, everlasting theme around this team, is that he took them from, what was a crumbled foundation into a sturdy 4-story mansion in terms of how that team is inside their own locker room. So, I mean, you have that aspect of it. I mean, you saw some of the high-end talent on display throughout the postseason. Hellebuck kind of figuring out his game as the postseason went along there and feeling good about where he's at least I do, heading into next year when the games and the stakes start to amp up and get a little bit higher. Yeah, I mean, that's a team that, if I'm looking for a new contract or if I'm chasing a Stanley Cup and looking around at what my options are, I think Winnipeg kind of slowly creeped up a little bit up the desirability list out there. They're not going to be anybody's premier destination, but when you take into account chance to win a Stanley Cup, an organization that seems to do things the right way, a group of guys that legitimately like to be with each other and go to battle every single day, I wonder if maybe the tides will turn just enough for the Jets to maybe pick up one or two maybe key names this offseason that maybe wouldn't have been on the table, say, in 2021.
Well, the one thing I'll say, and listen, I know there are some people that, are really focusing in on the trade deadline and what the Jets weren't able to do. And listen, for sure, would they have liked to have been successful in getting Brock Nelson? Yes. Now, does that make the difference? Colorado will tell you no. But at the same time, I mean, that is what they were trying to do, and they weren't able to do it. It was sort of a weird market this year because there was sort of him, and then there was a pretty significant drop-off. I still, when people are harping on, well, they didn't get anything done, well, I'm kind of saying, okay, well, who was out there that they could have gotten? I mean, Scott Lawton came in for the Leafs and played third, fourth line minutes. I mean, he's not going to be a number 2 center. It was difficult. But then you look at what the Stars did with getting Granlund and Ceci. Well, that wasn't at the deadline. That was a good probably 6 weeks out. And I think back to what they were able to do last year, being aggressive and getting Sean Monahan well ahead of the deadline. And in a lot of ways, Brandon, you know what the assets this organization has right now. They're coming off a great season, a playoff that I think they can look back and be proud about a lot of the things that they've done. From a general manager's position, if you're looking at making the most of this window right now with this team, I kind of think that the lessons learned from this year is to, even if you are the number 1 team in the league, I mean, it wasn't like they were struggling and the needs were obvious and desperate. I mean, they continued to roll. I think this summer, even before we get to the season, is where they'll look to maybe take care of things so they don't have that hole and that same need again over and over. And it makes for very interesting options when you think that they still have their first-round pick for this year. They've got a number of prospects. They've got that first round next year. How aggressive Chevy will be when it comes to bringing in a guy that will be locked in that position. And we're not talking about the need for, in particular, a number 2 center. I think is going to be something that I'm very interested to see if we have a bit of a different mode of operation for the general manager and the hockey team throughout these next few weeks. I want to say you got muted again somehow.
I never did it.
Is that on our end?
No. Let me try it.
How about now?
Right
Hello?
now.
Now you're back.
Okay, sorry about that. The funny thing is that everybody mentions the Rantanen trade. Obviously, paid off quite nicely for Dallas. But the really sly move they made was the Granlund one. Granlund and CC, where they kind of got ahead of the buyer's market, right? And Dallas got, he turned into mini Ovechkin for half the series against the Jets, Granlund. And that would have been one heck of a piece for the Jets to plug into their lineup, right? Avoiding the deadline, both in terms of, if it's a buyer's market, which it was this year, but then also the number of teams anteing up for the premium positions. Yeah, I'm totally fine with the Jets getting this done in the next, handful of weeks here. Especially because in the summer, like the prices don't really, if anything, it becomes a little more palatable to make some of these big time acquisitions. It's not like it'll cost them, if this trade at the deadline now costs you an extra second round pick or something like that. It's relatively stable in terms of the assets that you're giving up here. And it's also obvious too to everybody that, and this is kind of the unfortunate part, but the same holes at the deadline are the same holes going into the offseason here. And it's got to be, can you find an answer down the middle behind Mark Scheifele? And then I think the other one that I feel really confident in the team pulling off, because I think they maybe have finally, made I guess they've pretty much nailed it down that we've got to reconfigure how we look, is that they're going to add some size on the back end, specifically a bigger piece to play with Josh Morrissey. I think those are the two main boxes that Chevy, if you want to constitute a successful offseason, at least from the Jets standpoint, I think those two positions or moves would be the ones that, hey, if we get this done by the time July 3rd rolls around, we might take the summer off and feel damn good about how this team looks come training camp. So that's the other nice part, is it's not, we need to figure out 5, 6, 7 different issues here and then balance the future and the present. It's like we get 2 holes plugged up here. We can go into next year's deadline and not need to give up a first and a top prospect to try to get a deal done. We can maybe tinker around the edges like they did this past year, but knowing that basically at that point, everything is superficial and we can add based on what we think would be best, as opposed to being forced into making a move.
You mentioned the blue line, and the blue line to me is really interesting because, I think Elias Salmonson will challenge for playing time. He's on the right side. And maybe the best case scenario for the Jets is that guy to play with Josh Morrissey is already within the organization right now. Now, do you just move right into that spot? Probably not. And maybe that's why Dylan DeMello is a nice sort of placeholder at this time. But on the right side, Pionk, DeMello, Shannon Miller both have 1 year on their contracts. Yeah. So, I do think that if they go to, add someone that's, potentially top 4 material on the right side, we could be talking about a player or two potentially on the way out as well. As much as you want to have that depth, you just simply can't have that many defensemen on your roster.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I don't know. I don't have any intel on this, but that's kind of the sense that I get is, this is a few postseasons in a row now with this core group. And I think what we've learned is not only in terms of the defensive configuration of this team, but with the way Connor Hellebuck likes to play, maybe even more importantly so, you need to put a premium on opening up some sightlines for him if teams are going to try to go into that, throw it up to the point, let's get 2 guys in front, and we'll try to get some traffic and some chaos.
Blues mode.
Exactly, right? And it's not, you can't ignore it, right? Colorado, even with all their skill, Colorado leaned on that 100% last playoffs. St. Louis did it to great success. And then Dallas, varying success in doing that, but still, obviously, it was an issue the Jets had to try to combat over the course of the 6 games against the Stars. So I think if you want to get the most out of Connor Hellebuck and you want to build your team for playoff success, you can't really. And I like to think I'm more on the progressive side of things, and somewhat analytically leaning. But you just can't ignore how many teams go deep into the playoffs with a decor of guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". You need some meat out there. Like you got to go to Springfield Meats and pick up a Kubasah. Like this is what the Winnipeg Jets are going to have to, I think, try to fall in line with what other teams are doing out there. Again, easier said than done. We just got to find a 6'3" righty to play with Josh Morrissey. Oh, that's it. Okay, well then, those guys grow on trees. But I do think that it has become a bit of a fatal flaw in some degrees that teams have exposed and taken advantage of, especially knowing that Morrissey and Pionk are no doubt about it fixtures in your top four for the foreseeable future. And they're going to battle, but they need some help beside them. You feel great about Sandberg Pionk as your number two pair. As great as DeMello has been and as savvy as an addition as that was, I do think if the Jets want to focus on taking that next step, that they're going to have to find a bigger, more physical, capable partner for Josh Morrissey come playoff time. And I think there's some guys out there that can fill that void. But I do wonder when you talk about maybe moving some guys out because you do have a lot of term on this decor. I wonder if it is a DeMello or a Miller. They seem to like Luke Shen. And typically you don't move out a guy that you just acquired. But I wonder DeMello Miller there, what the decision might be like if the Jets would be okay with having a guy making $3.5 million on your third pair. That to me is kind of like a under the radar, potentially really seismic move that the team can make in terms of trying to further their playoff standing going into next year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to Ehlers. Where are you at? I mean, I said yesterday on the program that, just with the way the season went, the fact that he was a very important part of the power play, seemed to have a bigger role, albeit still on that second line. And just the results we saw from the team, how close they are. I feel better about a possibility of extending Ehlers than I did at this point last year or even earlier on in the season. But I'm far from thinking that, oh, yeah, this is going to happen. Like, how would you peg the chances right now of the Jets getting Ehlers back in the fold? And have you thought much about what it's going to take?
Yeah, honestly, I haven't even thought of the number because it's more like, is he going to stay or is he going to go? And I'm totally with you where you feel better about it after hearing Chevy say we want to make him a Jet for life. Like, okay. So there's obviously some level of commitment from the team on this. You don't say that, then sign him to offer a 3-year deal. Yeah. Right. So like there's that part of it. I mean, the intriguing part really is like, yes, they made him part of the number one power play. And that move paid off handsomely for the Winnipeg Jets. He's played, whatever you think of it, the facts are the facts. The Jets kind of view him as a second/third line winger when it comes to 5-on-5 ice time. It's indisputable at this point. And so how that bridge is going to be gapped. Like how do you can never guarantee somebody ice time when you get into any kind of negotiations, really, because things, I mean, look, you could pencil them in for the first line and feel great about it. Somebody else steps up, they slump, you got to make the switch, right? But like, how can they give some level of assurance that, we pushed you up to the first power play, you sign long-term here, we're going to make sure that you're getting out there for 18, 19 minutes a night. Hey,
let me ask you this. Because listen, I mean, it's indisputable. Like the numbers tell us what they are. I mean, and it's weird that he was having the least ice time on his line. I don't know whether that's just generally shorter shifts or what, but anyways, it is what it is. How much do you think that line's ice time changes if they make a significant upgrade at the 2C position?
I literally just got off the phone with my older brother who said the exact same thing.
I think they are. And listen, we can talk. The Adam Lowry line plays unique matchups. They're there to do a job, and they've done the job, and they've done it very well. And that's why that line gets the ice time that it does. And listen, you can't argue with the results. But individually, when you're talking about this, I mean, you do want to fit, you do want to be rewarded, and you want to have the opportunity to be your best. And I'm with you, but I do wonder if they take care of this hole that has basically they've been trying to fix for the last 3 years. If they do that successfully, how much does that change things for a player like Ehlers, who will presumably be on the wing with that improvement at the 2C position?
Yeah, it's totally valid. And I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. Then it's on Chevy to get that deal done before July 1. Because if I'm Nick Ehlers and it's like, Nicky, we're going to get a guy for you down the middle there. All right. Like, just hold tight. It's like, well, no, I'm not holding tight because I got $9 million a year from Utah on the table right now for 7 years. You know what I mean? So there's going to, Nick Ehlers is going to have to put a lot of trust in Kevin Cheveldayoff, I think, when these negotiations take place. Basically to deliver some assurances here that he is viewed as a part of this team's core legitimately. And that I think there's going to be some external help coming his way this upcoming year. And the GM's going to have to deliver on that. It's going to have to be one hell of a sales pitch. Like that's, I think, kind of the harsh reality of the situation there, because the closer it gets to July 1, you know, I know there's no tampering periods, quote unquote tampering periods like the NFL, but his agent's going to be, you know, kind of throwing out feelers to teams. And I guarantee you there's going to be clubs out there right now that if they get a chance to talk with him are going to say, you're our top line winger for the next 6 years. Like, no, there's no discussion to be had here. Like, we view you as integral to this team. And they might be able to even offer as much or more money than the Jets. Who knows, right? So I think this is one of those things where you've got to find a way to get it. The closer it gets to July 1, the more I'm going to be inclined to believe that he's going to be enticed and wooed by a handful of other suitors out there, maybe some that miss out on the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. And they're gonna be able to make those guarantees that you're starting this upcoming season on our top line. The Winnipeg Jets can't really do that, right? So it's gonna have to be one hell of a sales pitch, I think, to keep 27 in here. But if I had to give it a percentage number, probably 40% that he stays. But that number is a lot higher than it was 2 months ago. So
yeah.
That's
Listen,
the nice part of it.
I'm right about where you are. I mean, listen, if he stays here, they give him a very competitive offer that pays him well. He's going to get paid no matter what, and I'm sure he could go like a player like Ehlers. If it's just about the money, there'll be a couple bad teams that'll be willing to overpay, no problem, to get him there. Now, you're also leaving a team that you have been a centerpiece of building that is very good. And I think everyone in that room, including Nikolai Ehlers, feels like this team, is close. They'll be competing in the division. They'll be competing in the Western Conference, and they feel that they're close to competing for a Stanley Cup. So, I mean, it's a matter of, do you like it here? Do you want to still be a part of this team? Do you want to move forward with us? And listen, if he does leave, you will look back at Nikolai Ehlers, maybe more so than any player that's left, that was an incredible Jet, that, did everything he could for the team, was incredibly popular. And I don't think put it this way, the amount of the fan base that'll begrudge him for leaving will be tiny. Mm-hmm. And honestly, from a asset management as well, drafted, developed, played for basically 10 years here. I mean, if you can do that with all your first round picks, you're going to be really, really good. Yeah. But that certainly will be. And the trickle down from that and what happens with Nikolai Ehlers is so significant, Brandon, because from where I'm sitting, if Ehlers is not part of the mix, never mind still trying to upgrade that number 2C position, your second line looks significantly different with no matter who you put in there, because Ehlers is such a special, unique player and does so many things for that line or for this team. Not a lot of guys waiting in the wings just to fill those shoes.
Yeah, and then, I mean, how do you get them? Free agency or by trade? Okay. Where are two of the biggest sticking points for the Jets? We can't woo too many people in free agency, and we can't convince them to waive. So, like, it's funny, too, because I still believe that even with Ehlers in the fold, I'd like to see more speed and skill in this lineup. If he's gone, then like there's a troubling amount of injection that needs to happen on that side. And, can you rely on some internal ads to mitigate some of that? Maybe, but not this upcoming season, maybe 3-4 years from now. So it's pretty concerning. Like even if you're on maybe the more pessimistic side of the fence of what Ehlers brings to the table, it is going to be hard to replicate that if he's out the door. And again, you're not getting, any amount of picks or prospects back for him. So is it mandatory the Jets find a way to keep Ehlers in the fold? Whatever the level before mandatory is us, I might say it's that one. It's not going to be a franchise crippling move if he's gone, but also like, how the hell are we going to score goals and enter the zone cleanly without him in the lineup next season? So I think there would be a lot less headaches about this team if you were able to lock him up and keep him long term than if he was to walk out the door, regardless of how much he signs for.
100%. And that's going to be a major topic on this program and amongst Jet conversations over the course of the next month plus. And I hope we don't get to July 1st, but we'll be here every day talking about it, I'm sure. Hey, quickly on the way out, we talked quickly about Edmonton kind of imploding. It gave me vibes of the Jets on the road in St. Louis in the first round. Just something bad happens and just completely snowballed on them. Based on what you saw last night and what you know about these teams, who advances out of the West?
It's funny because I actually was flipping through the 2 implosion games, but I was missing each implosion as it happened because I was watching Knicks Pacers. I'm like, oh, good, this one's over because, Oilers Stars is over. Oh, wait, Dallas is up? Oh, wait, it's tied. So that was pretty funny. I still might lean a bit towards Edmonton here.
Me too.
They played good. Again, like they play this, although this is kind of becoming a theme against the Stars this playoffs, where it's like the opposition plays good and feels like they deserve better, but that doesn't equal a series victory. And Dallas just keeps piling up win after win after win. I think the scariest part for Edmonton is that the depth guys finally got into the act on Dallas. Like Duchesne breaks the goose egg. You don't need 4 points from Rantanen to win a game, although he still gets on the score, right? So it's like the biggest issue for Dallas, they found a way to correct that with that big third period. But I still like the way the Oilers are playing. I mean, they faced so much adversity these past 2 playoff runs. Like, I mean, they were getting dominated against LA for 2 games. They flipped that series on its head immediately. Down 0-3 against the Panthers. They pushed it to a Game 7. So I don't think it's a team that's going to get rattled, even though they completely blew that one in pretty spectacular fashion to give up a 2-goal lead really early in the third period like that. But I think Edmonton's going to bounce back. I think the main thing for the Oilers is just avoiding a 3-1 series hole, because it's hard to ignore the fact that as the series move along, Stuart Skinner seems to find his game through games 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So I think Edmonton, I'm still feeling pretty good about their chances, but we've seen it. Dallas is no joke. When they get going, they're tough to beat. But I still like a rematch of last year's finals.
Plus 150 on the money line for, not on the money line, for the series win for Edmonton right now over at Coolbet. Dallas is minus 185 and the Oilers plus 375 to win the Cup. The Panthers still the favorite, plus 175. Rue, you have a good one, pal. Thanks for doing this.
Sounds good. You guys too. We'll talk soon.
Talk to you soon. There was just Brandon Rewucki. Check out Skates and Plates wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Princess Auto Stadium, it's going to be rocking. We're back. We had the Valor FC Vancouver Whitecaps game a couple days ago. We got preseason CFL action coming up this weekend. And then next weekend, the Desiree Scott retirement match for Team Canada and our national women's soccer team. So it's going to be great to get back to Princess Auto Stadium. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, WST, and so much of our sporting community. But as we get into spring and summer, Princess Auto is also the place that is going to be helping you take off all those projects off that list, because they got the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around, everything you need to tick off those projects or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon, and shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. Shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake. They are ready for another big fishing season. Cannot wait to get out there. If you're thinking about maybe doing something a little different this year, staying in the province, staying north of the border, check out Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. You can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, including the flight, and world-class fishing, and even more world-class hospitality from the Aikens team and the Torrenda family. Find out more on the 2025 fishing season availability and options at aikenslake.com. And make sure to give them a follow and check out all their social media channels at Aikens Lake. And a happy anniversary to the fellas at F Apparel. They're busy right now. They just celebrated 15 years in the last couple weeks, and now they're getting ready for grad season and wedding season is the number one spot for custom men's clothing in town. Custom suits, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, the best selection of menswear accessories, and great deals for both grads and wedding parties. Special discount when the guys get their suits for the big day at F Apparel. And if you have a 2025 grad, make sure to talk to them about a free shirt and tie with the purchase of any suit for graduation day. F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. And online at F, that's EPHapparel.com. All right, Wiebe is locked and loaded. Ken Wiebe going to join us right now. And this segment's brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers who want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, and it's backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. So take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. We talk about how good this truck looks everywhere it goes. The Toyota Tundra is turning heads. From $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.19% APR, with $66.99 down, hybrid available. Visit shoptoyota.ca. All right, Manitoba Golf Tour well underway from reports. Let's welcome in, not on the tee right now. He's on the tee on WST, Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press. What's up, Wiebe?
Andrew, great to be with you. Tour has still been pretty slow out of the gate. Only three Manitoba-based rounds this year, but that number will be on the rise, it appears. Yes.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, everyone's got a little bit more time. Ended sooner than everyone would like. But listen, you were in Dallas on Saturday with the Winnipeg Free Press. It's the one game of the series that I wasn't in the building for. What will you remember about Game 6? I mean, and the day of Game 6, Ken, because, I mean, you know, having boots on the ground, that was a day that unfortunately was incredibly emotional, I think, for everybody involved, whether you were on the team or not. And obviously ended with the end of the Jets season. But, man, I mean, a lot of memories about the character of this team, the courage of Mark Scheifele. I mean, when we get down the road and people say, hey, what do you remember about Dallas in Game 6? What do you take away?
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack for sure, especially, you know, for myself personally, having gone through something similar to Mark. Not going to make this about me, but just in terms of context and background. In 1995, in the midst of our playoff run with the Winkler Flyers, my mom passed away before Game 5. So I had some experience in terms of the decision-making process Mark personally had to go through. And personally myself played the next day as well. And found the arena to be a very good place for healing and help, and you know, have a feeling and how Mark dealt with teammates and friends and all of the mayhem that goes around with dealing with something along those lines. And it was inspirational in a lot of ways, and there was a great rally by our team, and then ended up playing the Winnipeg South Blues in the final after that series. So anyways, with that as the backdrop, you know, something was different. I know you spoke to Murat a little bit. And for me, you know, Kevin Cheveldayoff is usually around the rink in the morning, Huss, but he's usually not hanging around the team area and the backdrop. He's usually sitting in the seats. So when I saw Kevin around, and we, you know, general procedure is we ask for a few players to speak to in the morning, even if it's an optional. But When I went over to Scott Brown to ask what was up, I saw Mason Appleton in the hallway, and all he would say to me was, "You'll see in a minute." And I wouldn't say it was an eerie feeling at that time, but definitely something was on the horizon, I guess. And when Kevin Cheveldayoff stepped to the podium and delivered those words, it was jarring, quite frankly, because it's not something that you expect, right? I mean, we know that Brad Scheifele was dealing with illness, for some time, but when Kevin Cheveldayoff used the words "unexpected," then you're worried that something is, what happened with Mark is very, tough. It's the toughest thing that Mark will have to go through in his life, and having gone through it myself, and fortunately for him, he was able to lean on the strength of a bunch of his teammates, guys who've gone through something similar themselves. Josh Morrissey, I thought the ability for Mark to walk in with Josh, I thought that was just a gripping picture of strength. I said at the time I didn't think it was an accident, and then hearing Josh speak afterward during exit interviews, it wasn't an accident that he was there. And Josh's words that, as heartbreaking as it was to go through for himself, but to have had that experience to lean on in dealing with your best friend as he went through something like that, that's something that I won't soon forget. The way that Adam Lowry spoke with such emotion after the game, Huss, I mean, that was, incredibly touching, classy, so much grace shown by an incredible leader. And we've said this before, Adam is an incredible human being. And, just to hear the way that he cared so much, and it deeply hurt him so much that they were unable to get that penalty kill. Because Huss, I mean, if you're Adam Lowry, you think that penalty gets killed, those last 13 seconds go off the clock, and somehow you spring Mark Scheifele for a breakaway and he puts in the game winner and there's a game 7. I mean, that's the Jets storybook ending for that game. And, hockey is healing, Huss, but hockey can also be incredibly cruel. And, instead of a Mark Scheifele GWG to go along with his, memorable moment in time in scoring the goal that he did, which was incredible and enough, in terms of what the courage he showed just on getting out on the ice and delivering the type of performance that he did, that he, with time winding down, he made a play that, trying to make something happen, unfortunately for him, hits the shin pad of Sam Steele, and his only play was to haul down Sam Steele. And I mean, Huss, quite frankly, that it was a penalty shot all day long. But the fact that series ends with Mark Scheifele dropping his head in dismay and disbelief is, that's a pretty cruel gut punch to someone who had already been through one of the most, traumatic things that you'll ever have to deal with in your entire life. In terms of takeaways from the game, I mean, it's a great hockey game. Two really good teams going at each other. Stars had a better first period, no doubt about it. Jets found their way. Mark scored. As Josh talked about the text that his mom shared with him and that he later shared with Mark. I mean, there's, the three dads up there with their beverage of choice looking down on the game, and Mark delivers one for the heavens, basically, right? I mean, that's sort of storybook stuff right there. Incredible battle, great chances at both ends. And, Thomas Harley, who is one of the best players in this series, Andrew, finds himself open and bangs home a slap shot, and the puck goes in, and there is an element of wow. Huss, we saw what happened, the Manitoba Miracle in Game 7. The Jets had a little bit of that team of destiny thing sort of rolling around with them. You see the way they play in Game 5, and Connor Hellebuyck getting another shutout. You wonder if they have a little bit more magic up their sleeve, basically. And, the next task would have been to try to, knock Pete DeBoer off his perfect 9-0 in Game 7. But, there's a very abrupt ending to that season for the Winnipeg Jets. And then to see the scene that followed, again, that's something that you don't soon forget. I didn't see the embrace with Mark and Josh. I heard it was quite emotional. But what we did see is a really impressive group of people band together, and Huss, it goes back to, what Rick Bowness was looking for when he named Adam Lowry captain. He was looking for strength. He was looking for someone who embodied the spirit of this community that we live in. And he was looking for someone who is inclusive in his leadership. And in a no passengers game with people banding together, some of whom knew Brad very well, some of them barely knew him at all. But there was a very much a unified spirit in that room, on that ice, in the moments that led up to the game, in the moments that followed, and in the moments that we saw in the last couple days during exit interviews. This is one of those scenarios, Huss, where the pain will be deep, and we saw it in Gabe Vilardi's voice. Basically flat out saying he felt they had one of the best chances of anybody remaining to win the Stanley Cup. When you don't reach that goal, it's heartbreaking. But I think there was something greater or bigger at play, and Huss, it's the path towards the silver chalice is not linear. This is a group that's endured a lot of heartache and scar tissue, but the regeneration that Mark Scheifele talked about in the day before the playoffs began, I think that is still a work in progress, and I think that this is something that will serve them well moving forward. Sorry, that's a long trip to the buffet there.
No, listen, this is great.
I
I wanted to get, you were there. We had a great chat with Murad about it yesterday. And we can't really move on to the off season without, really, talking about that run to the playoffs. As far as this series goes, Ken, I don't know how, listen, it's hockey, two really good teams playing close games. We know that there's regret in game number one. Obviously game 4 was a very winnable game and they didn't get it done. They had 2 really convincing wins on home ice. Game 3 was the controversial goal, and then the second one right afterwards. And then game 6, was in overtime. Why are the Dallas Stars playing today and the Jets aren't in your mind?
Yeah, their scar tissue, they've had a little more time for it to build up and for it to regenerate. Huss is my simple answer. This is a team that's been to the Western Conference Final 3 years in a row. As painful as the Jets' loss was to the Colorado Avalanche for them and getting steamrolled, as Gabe Vilardi reminded us, Huss, Dallas Stars feel they missed a massive opportunity last spring, Huss. They felt like they were a better team than the Edmonton Oilers, and the unthinkable happened. And I mean this as no disrespect, but we saw how great Jake Ottinger was. He was the best goalie in the series. Us last May, he was not the best goalie in the Western Conference Final. Stuart Skinner outplayed him, one series after losing his job to Winnipegger Calvin Pickard. And that's one of the reasons why the Dallas Stars were watching as the Edmonton Oilers erased that 3-0 series deficit and forced a Game 7 before losing to the Florida Panthers. So I would say the Dallas Stars were just a little bit of a deeper team, slightly deeper. They were slightly better. Well, not slightly better. They were better at special teams. Huss 7-3 was the final tally. It's in power play goals, including important goals as the series went along in those games you mentioned, winnable games. Two power play goals in Game 4, and another power play goal that knocked them out of the playoffs in Game 6. So to me, it was that close. And also Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen was the best player in the series. Kyle Connor had a great playoff, but the impact, was not quite as high as Mikko Rantanen's. And Mikko Rantanen, took him a long time to get to the top of the mountain, but when he did, he learned a lot when he was there in that run that I covered in 2022 with our pal Sean Reynolds. So when the margin is that slim, you need everybody going. And the wild part for Dallas, Huss, 0 goals from Matt Duchene, 0 goals from Jamie Benn, 1 goal from Wyatt Johnston in that series. So although some of the Jets players were a little quieter than they needed to be, so were the Dallas guys. So to me, it came down to, slightly better in a couple of areas. And, it's a one-shot game in Game 6. This is not to place blame, but we know the player who had the best chance to end the game in regulation is Mason Appleton. He talked openly about that haunting opportunity that he had, and the puck doesn't land flat. You're in that situation. You were eager to hammer it in. You see an empty net, and you don't get all of it, and the goalie sprawls and makes a ridiculous save, and next thing you know, you're looking to the heavens. That's a tough one. Doesn't matter what level you play it at, Huss. If you had a chance like that to win the game, it's something that eats away at you, and it's incredibly gnawing. And When you look at his own personal circumstances as a pending UFA, if that happens to be his last game, that's a tough ending for a guy who had 7 assists in the playoffs and was one of the Jets' most productive players. Now, again, I understand that folks dump on him and don't like the ice time and some of the other things, but Mason Appleton as a 6th-round draft pick gave a lot to this organization, Huss. A lot of 6th-rounders don't even get a sniff of the NHL, let alone play 8 seasons and play as important a role on the checking line as he has, and that's a tough one for him. But again, the Jets had lots of ample opportunity. Gabe Vilardi hits Jake Ottinger in the back of the leg in that third period power play. I mean, that's a wild chance. But anyways, a long-winded way of saying they were just a little bit better and they got a little bit more experience, and we'll see if the Jets can apply that next season.
I think you could totally make the argument that at 5-on-5, the Jets were the better team. And it was special teams. And I think we have to say that Jake Ottinger was the better goaltender.
He was,
me, I'm the biggest Hellebuck backer there is. I will ride with the guy till the end. I love the way that he came back in the series. But I do wonder, and maybe if we can, because we haven't really gotten into what Hellebuck had to say. Just thoughts, takeaways on Hellebuck's playoffs coming off his historic regular season. And what you heard from Hellebuck at the exit interviews before they went away for the summer.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what I heard from Connor. Incredibly motivated individual, Huss. I thought he let us into the vault a little bit more than normal, maybe, if you will. I think the messaging over the years has been pretty standard. Like my game, like my details and all of those things. I think that he was very forthcoming in terms of I wouldn't call it a crisis of confidence, but he definitely had some things tested during these playoffs. When you're talking about the weight of the world being lifted off of your shoulders after getting past that first round hurdle, I mean, that's a pretty big admission, Huss. I think it was an important one for Connor. I think he got back to trusting his own, process. And again, this is a guy who thinks he can stop every single shot that he faces, right? I mean, look at the last one. He probably still thinks that he could have stopped the Thomas Harley one-timer from the slot, even though he didn't see it at all because he was screened. But this is a guy who takes himself very seriously. He takes his process seriously. He is a problem solver. He is someone who will be, getting some, much needed time with his family, but he will get back into the lab. And Huss, this is very simple to me. We saw what happened with Connor Hellebuck after last year's disappointing playoff series when he gave up 24 goals. He came back the best version of himself during the regular season. Yes, there were some hiccups on the road, especially in the playoffs, but he also posted a couple of bagels, which is important for him also. I think he comes back even more motivated, even more dialed in. And the only thing that we'll see, and I asked him about it and he didn't say it was an issue, but I mean, for me, Huss, I think we're going to see Connor Hellebuck's games played reduced slightly. I'm not saying 10 fewer starts. What I do think is he will be in the, 56 to 58 range rather than the 62 range, which was really 65 when you include the Four Nations face-off, especially with it being an Olympic year. And let me be clear. I don't think this is because he was tired. But Huss, the reality is he's 32 years old. And here's the other thing. We don't have any evidence to suggest what Connor Hellebuck can be if he has 55 starts. As much as he loves his rhythm, Huss, we have lots of evidence for Connor Hellebuck at 60 plus starts, and I trust the process, and I know that Wade Flaherty put a lot of thought into this. I just think that moving forward, I think you're going to see a slight reduction in games played. I don't know, like I said, it's not going to be in the low 50s, but I do think it will be more in that 56 to 58 range or 59 range rather than, 62, which was really 65. And if you want to talk about the leverage, it's 65 and then 13. Here's the other thing, Huss. If you're Connor Hellebuck, you want, 10 to 13 more starts than what you had in the playoffs. So to me, that's where you get the additional value in reducing the workload slightly, even though we know he is still one of the pure workhorses in the National Hockey League and he relies on rhythm. I just think we're going to see a slight reduction. Again, we're going to have to see what the schedule looks like. It's going to be even more compressed than it was this year, which probably means a few more back-to-backs, which gives you a couple of natural, easy starts for Eric Comrie. But that's one thing that I think. But in terms of what he said, Huss, I liked a lot of what he said. You saw great accountability from Connor Hellebuck. This is a guy who is a big part of the leadership group on the Winnipeg Jets. He's not just the all-world goalie, put on a pedestal. This is a guy who is very invested in what this team has done to date, and he's very invested in helping this team get those 10 next wins that are required in order to win a Stanley Cup.
Ken Wiebe, the Winnipeg Free Press, with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Wiebe, there is a long list of to-dos for Kevin Cheveldayoff. Certainly, talking to fans, the number one spot on that list is the status of Nikolai Ehlers. We heard yesterday they're going to make a pitch to try to make him a Jet for life. Where are you at on the likelihood of that coming to fruition before the 1st of July?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, for me, it's the same as it's always been. I think two things can be true, and in this case, they are. Nikolai Ehlers loves the Winnipeg Jets. He loves the city, loves the organization. He is enjoyed his decade with the Winnipeg Jets as a player, an impactful player, an important player. But the fact of the matter is, Huss, that Nikolai Ehlers is someone who would like to be a first-line player. And, some people have a different viewpoint of that, and that's their prerogative. For me, the fact that Nikolai Ehlers was on the first power play this year was very important in terms of how he was viewed by Scott Arniel. I think that Nikolai Ehlers knows he's a valued piece of the puzzle. We heard almost every single player who was asked about him speak very highly of him as a teammate and as a dynamic player. But for me, I just would put it this way. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers signed his current deal a year before his entry-level contract expired. So I understand that life circumstances change, but the majority of the Jets players that have extended previously to the season being over. And that's not to say the Jets can't pull it off before July 1st, but the fact that Nikolai Ehlers' public commentary, dating back to last year's exit interviews and following through at the golf tournament this year, Huss, he didn't want to talk about contract. He didn't want to talk, future. That leads me to believe that he at least wants to explore what is out there on July 1st. I don't think that the Jets are completely out of the running in that conversation. And again, the fact that Andre Rufner was speaking with Kevin Cheveldayoff for a 2-hour period, if you're not leaving the door open, you're not talking for 2 hours. I mean, that's factual. But what I think, Huss, is that come July 1st, there are going to be a number of teams with the rising salary cap that look at the dynamic player Nikolai Ehlers is, coupled with the fact that he finally shed those playoff ghosts in the playoffs this year with 5 goals and 7 points. I think there's going to be people that value him as a first-line player and will pay him, north of $8 million. And that's going to be a hard thing to say no to if you're Nikolai Ehlers. And again, I'm not saying he's going to go to a terrible team. And I'm not saying that, a bad team adding Nikolai Ehlers, they're going to improve dramatically. But there are also other teams, Huss, that have the means and the cap room. I think about the Carolina Hurricanes being back in the conference final again. And yes, Svechnikov is having a much better playoff this year, but I look at the Carolina Hurricanes and I think about Nikolai Ehlers potentially being in that lineup, and I think that's a dynamic lineup. I think about the Toronto Maple Leafs probably making some changes to their core, and I see Nikolai Ehlers being someone that Brad Treliving would like to have in his lineup, or Craig Berube would like to have in his lineup. I see the Utah Mammoth. Yes, they have a bunch of skilled players, but they don't have a bunch of skilled players that are, approaching 30 and are, 8-time 20-goal scorers. So just a couple of quick ones, and then San Jose. I mean, San Jose wants to start leveling up with all their star players. Yes, they got Tyler Toffoli to play with Macklin Celebrini. Pretty sure that Nikolai Ehlers would enjoy riding shotgun on the left wing there too. But again, we don't know what Ehlers is looking for, Huss. You talked about being set for life. I mean, he basically got set for life with his last contract. But again, he's going to get paid, he's going to get a raise, and he is going to be a valued commodity if he makes it to July 1st. And, it's incumbent on the Winnipeg Jets to make their best offer in the next couple of weeks, months, whatever you want to say. And if they can't get the deal done, or if Nikolai wants to explore the other options, then they're going to have to replace a very difficult piece to replace us. Because here's the thing with the Jets. They already need more primary and secondary scoring, and they want to get faster, and they potentially could lose their fastest player. So there's a lot on the plate for Kevin Cheveldayoff to tackle. He's done a lot of good business over the course of the year already. But there are some few big things to tackle, including Ehlers right away, and then also Velarde and Sandberg. Those are two other massive RFA deals. And, too, with the way that Morgan Barron played, they're going to want to get that nailed down, fairly quickly as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, what's interesting, and Marat kind of brought this up. I mean, there's always been lots of talk about Ehlers' ice time and being a first-line player, which we've heard from people. We've never heard anything like that from him. And, nor his agent or anything like that. So, again, trying to look at the glass half full, I do wonder, and listen, it's up to him. I mean, it is his right. He has earned it, to be a free agent and to go where he wants to go. But I do wonder, I mean, even you mentioned like Toronto. I mean, Carolina, listen, they're back in the conference finals. We'll see whether they can win a game, never mind a series in this moving forward. And yeah, so some of those teams, like a San Jose, I'm sure would give him maybe even more money that's out there in other spots. Are you looking for the money, or do you want to be a part of something that you were a big part of building, and you want to win a Stanley Cup? And where do you think you have the best opportunity to do that? And as I said, I don't have a strong feeling either way. I think because of the guy Ehlers is and, what he has meant to this team, I think that there'll certainly be some consideration. But until we have any sort of crumbs elsewhere, it is really hard to truly know what the motivations of him are when it comes to one of the biggest decisions he'll ever make.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing about Ehlers. Incredibly accountable, very blunt, but also very private. As you mentioned, there's no leaks. There's nothing privately. There's nobody that's sitting in the corner saying, "Oh, I know exactly what he's going to do." Well, Nikolai Ehlers may not even know fully what he's going to do, Huss, and that's the whole thing about putting it on the back burner. And it went from the back burner to staying on the back burner because he went straight to the World Championship to try to get Denmark. He got them into the quarterfinal, and he's trying to get them into the semifinal now. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I've covered Nikolai Ehlers since he got here. I don't pretend to know exactly what is on his mind. I mean, what I know he values is he wants to win. We know that he's got over a decade of sweat equity with this program in Winnipeg. We know he loves the city. The city loves him. But at the same time, this is his big time to cash in. So I expect him to at least get to July 1st and probably listen to what's out there. And whether he circles back and comes to Winnipeg, that's still a possibility. But again, I'm not here banging on the table saying it's a guarantee Ehlers is going to sign. I'm not saying it's a guarantee he's gone, but I would say the likelihood is that he's going to at least listen to offers elsewhere. And at the same time, knowing what else is on the horizon for the Jets, extension for Kyle Connor, extension for Adam Lowry, new deals for Velarde and Dylan Sandberg. I think there is cap space available, but it's going to be a challenge. It's a complicated chessboard for Kevin Cheveldayoff. I think he can get it all done. And again, if he doesn't, you're going to have to fill a pretty big void on the second line. And, this is a team that didn't score enough in these playoffs as it is. Now, Ehlers and Velarde also missed time during these playoffs, and that was a factor. But it'll be fascinating to watch it all unfold, Huss. Let's just put it that way. And, Nikolai Ehlers is going to be the person who makes the decision, and we'll listen to his reasoning after the fact, because I think it's pretty clear that he's not going to be dropping many hints before it's time to get the deal signed, just based on the behavior to this point.
Yeah, no, listen, that is fair. One thing I've been kicked around, and I do wonder, where their priority is. Do you think there's a chance that they would re-sign Ehlers, do whatever it took to get him re-signed, and trade Gabe Velarde?
Yeah, I mean, I that's a tough one, Huss. I don't know. I mean, is it always possible? Sure, but I just don't know what.
How aggressive do you think they'll be in using a trade to get a second line center?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, again, a lot of it can hinge on what Ehlers' decision is, Huss. I mean, it's hard to envision a second line center and Ehlers being back in the fold. But I do think that is going to be definitely something that is a priority for the Winnipeg Jets, whether that's using some draft capital or, being aggressive. I think that that's part of it. One thing that we also did see during the playoffs, we saw Gabe Vilardi taking a lot of draws. Is that something that we could see moving forward? And, then you could see Perfetti move up with Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele potentially, and then maybe the Jets are going for a higher end winger with some size and scoring on the second line. I'm not sure, but again, I just think that Gabe Vilardi, before he got hurt this year at Game 72 or in Game 71, this guy who had 27 goals, 61 points, and had a career year.
The only reason I bring that up, Ken, is that if Ehlers walks, he's gone, and you're not getting anything back, and you got to fill that hole plus the ones that you already had. If you bring Ehlers back, does that all of a sudden make maybe one of the other wingers that you're going to have to pay a little more expendable to potentially make a big upgrade in a position that you feel is a priority?
Yeah, it's always possible, Huss. It's just not that wouldn't be how I would be viewing the puzzle pieces as of right now. But to your point, if Ehlers is going to be gone, it enhances the importance of signing Kyle Connor, because if you in a 2-year window, if you see a 40+ goal scorer and a 8-time 20 goal scorer go out the door, that is a massive hole in the in all of that's a humongous crack in the foundation, Huss. You're almost going back to rebuilding the entire property if that's the case, right? So a lot of these things are intertwined, and if they're not intertwined, then the replacement pieces have to be massive, because it's been clear through both the players and the coach and the general manager, winning the Stanley Cup remains a priority. So that means spending the money with assets and getting the job done in terms of upgrading the roster, Huss, because that's another part. The Jets have a lot of the important pieces in place, but it is also apparent they need to upgrade the roster if they want to win the Stanley Cup. Now, again, this is not a teardown project, but they need to upgrade their roster, whether that's on the fringes or if it's in the top 6, and upgrading that second line center position that we've been talking about for so long.
Wiebe, great stuff as always, all season long. We'll look forward to many chats as we get closer to the draft, the awards, and of course, July 1st. But thanks again, as always, and hopefully we'll see you out on the links sometime soon.
Right on, buddy. Looking forward to getting out to Breezy with you. Have a good chat with Josh, and thanks for having me all year long. Lots of fun to unwind over the next few months here.
When's the year-ender bender going to be? September? I guess that's a little complicated right now.
July 8th, I believe. Sorry, sneak peek. Join us at the top of the hour for the full details, but K and R are wrapping up at the top when you're done. But yeah, July 8th, we'll do the early. The secret's out. You exclusive. Winnipeg Sports Talk exclusive. Yes, breaking news. Get your tickets if you're in the chat room here. Join us at the top of the hour, but get your tickets ready. July 8th. TCB.
All right. Okay, take it easy, Weaver. Thanks for doing this. We're going to go from one valued member of the Free team to another, Josh Frey-Sam. We got to get back on this Bomber beat right now. Listen, training camp's been going on. Time to get to the stadium, Princess Auto Stadium, on the weekend for some preseason action. Listen, just before we bring in Josh, folks, mark this weekend down. The world famous Royal Sports and Kings tent sale will be happening 10 a.m. Saturday till 6, 11 a.m. till 5 on Sunday. Over 2,000 pairs of shoes, over 1,000 items of apparel, all at incredible blowout prices. On running, New Balance, Puma, Adidas, Brooks, Under Armour, Vans, Etnies, Converse, Volcom, Billabong, Globe, and lots of Winnipeg Jets merchandise and incredible deals. Get over to the famous tent sale at Royal Sports this weekend, starting 10 a.m. on Saturday. Of course, fun night last night watching the Oilers and Stars with a lot less stress than we had to go through when the Jets were playing, although we'd prefer the other way around. BP's your place to check out all the playoff action. Back at it tonight with the Panthers and the Hurricanes. And while you're there, check out the amazing BP playoff menu while it's here. Triple Pep Pizza, Wingman Pizza, the Wing Flights, the Scoville Showdown. And don't sleep on that amazing Canadian all-star poutine as well. Hey, staying at home, you can always order online at bostonpizza.com. And listen, just before we bring in Josh, a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
Train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, we are going to transition over a little Bomber talk right now, but I will remind you, we were just talking about Nikolai Ehlers going out to the Worlds. Well, he helped Denmark qualify for the quarterfinals. They're right now holding their own with Canada. 2 minutes left in the second period. It is 0-0 between Canada and Denmark. We'll be keeping an eye on that for the Danes, and of course, it being in Sweden and Denmark. Wouldn't that be something for Nick Ehlers? I guess being Canadian, we got to cheer for Canada, but be pretty happy for Nick if they were able to get that win. What a huge win that would be for their country. But let's bring in Josh Frey-Sam from the Winnipeg Free Press, who's been grinding on the Bomber beat now that camps. What's going on, dude? How are you?
Oh, us, man. Good to see you, man. Good to talk to you guys again. Good to be back. A lot's been going on. We've been busy. Obviously, Mike and Ken are doing the Jets, and then it's just kind of been a lot of Bombers and Sea Bears, and Gold Eyes are firing up. We got all the sports in Winnipeg going on right now, and I've been looking over. It's been a ton of fun. Busy, but a ton of fun, and looking forward to talking some Bombers here.
Well, it's good stuff. I mean, just quickly before we get to the Bombers, was at the Gold Eyes home opener a couple days ago. Great crowd to kick off the season for the Fish. Another win last night, which was nice. And, oh, my God, that Sea Bears opener.
Special. Great
crowd, great game, although they did make it quite interesting. 22 up going into target score and a win by 3, but they don't ask how much, they just ask how many, and that's 1 in the win column for the Siebes.
Yeah, no doubt. And that was, they made it a little too close for comfort. I think that's what a couple of the players were saying. But yeah, 22-7 run in target time there. That was crazy. I kind of found myself laughing at myself a little bit there, going, are they really actually going to make this thing happen? I'm sitting there with my story almost ready to go, typed up and ready to hit file. And it's like, oh my god.
Nightmare fuel for the journos.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. You know where I'm coming from. So yeah, but it's yeah, man, that was a fun one. I'm looking forward to We'll be back there tomorrow night, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, of course, Sea Bears back in action at home. But let's get to the Bombers. This has been a little bit of a strange offseason for the Bombers. You finally, it was inevitable it was going to happen. Some pretty key players moving out. Obviously, still the foundation of this club was Zach Caleros and Stanley Bryant, still part of this team. But I think the outlook's a little different. I think people certainly, like the Bombers have sort of been the team in the Canadian Football League that everyone's chasing despite the losses in the 2 previous championship games. But going into camp, for those of you covering it, far more intrigue about who's going to be filling some of these positions. What have your takeaways been from Bomber camp so far with the new faces and the amount of competition and questions, I guess, as to who's going to fill some of these holes in the lineup?
Yeah, no, that's a great place to start, because the training camp battles, the position battles have been that's kind of made it a lot more fun, like you said, to cover for me. But I'll name off a couple of these camp battles that we got to keep an eye on. One of them I'm writing about right now, and that is at left guard. Is it going to be Gabe Wallace? Is it going to be Tuieli, who's going to fill in at left guard there? The other spot, we know we got Nick Dembski and Dalton Schoen, who are there at the a wide receiver spot, but then, and also Carrick Wheatfall feels like another name that's kind of locked in there as well as the guy. But is Kevins Clercius, who's coming back for another season, is he going to be the guy? Or they've also had Myron Mitchell, who's actually been having a great camp there as well. And then in the slot as well, is it going to be Jarrett Stearns, who came over from the Saskatchewan Roughriders? I've been really impressed by him. He's having a great camp. And then also again, Myron Mitchell could also play there, and along with Cody Case is another name. So there's along the offense, Huss, is kind of where a lot of these battles are taking place. On defense, it's more so the depth options that are kind of where the position battles are happening, because on defense, I mean, we can kind of look to everybody right now as to who's going to be the starter. And James Vaughters is kind of the big name that we got to remember there. The Bombers, who's going to be opposite Willie Jefferson. The Bombers obviously tried to toy around with a second-year Taiwan Garbett, who's coming off the edge last year. They had Celestin Haba, who got hurt as well. They had, then by whatever week it was early in the season with the Bombers, are 0-4, whatever it was at the time. And they've got 8th-round rookie Owen Hubert starting opposite Willie Jefferson. And so that defensive end spot is not necessarily a camp battle anymore, but it's more so shored up for the Bombers. And those are kind of what I would say the offense is really where I'm looking to as far as a lot of the camp battles go. But everything else seems to be pretty shored up. And then it's just kind of a matter of depth options after that.
Let's talk about the QB position, which we know is Zach Collaros, but he's not going to be playing week 1. You've got Strevler coming off an injury. Shea Paterson's already out the door. How is the quarterback position shaping up behind Zach Collaros, both for week 1 and how Mike O'Shea will use the position when Zach Collaros isn't in, whether it be short yardage or if he can't start a game?
Yeah. So it seems like it's going to be Chris Strevler in week 2. Keep in mind, week 2, not week 1.
That's right. Excuse me. By week 1. Brutal.
All good. And it's that. So it's going to be that week 1 bye. But yeah, Chris Strevler, by all accounts, I think anyways, is going to be the guy. And, Mike O'Shea, obviously, he's going to keep his cards close to his chest. But he kind of hinted at the fact that I asked him whether or not Chris would be ready for week 2. And this was like first day of camp. And he said, oh, yeah, of course, undoubtedly he's going to be ready to go. So, I mean, I think it's going to be Chris in week 2 here. And then after that, you have the battle between Terry Wilson and Chase Artopius, the rookie who they've kind of had their eyes on for a couple of years now. Well, Terry feels like he's the leader in the clubhouse here, but you never know when it comes to these games. These guys are going to get lots of reps in games. I don't think Zach is going to play necessarily. You never know, but I don't think Zach is going to play in these preseason games. And then so you got a lot of reps for Terry Wilson, Chase Artopius. And for my money, Huss, I don't think that Terry's looked particularly great in camp. Not that Chase Artopius has blown me away either, but like it's a fall off after Zach, and we know that. But that's why his health is obviously paramount. But yeah, as far as that goes, that's kind of where the quarterback battle is between those two. I think Strevler is the clear-cut guy who, if Zach, in the event of injury, he goes down, it's Chris's show. But and we know what he can do as far as maybe some people have some questions about his arms, but at the very least, he might be able to make something happen with his legs to help you grind out a close score, a low-scoring game throughout the season. But Terry Wilson kind of throws a nice ball on air, but you see him in some of these live drills, and it's a little hit or miss for me. It's maybe whether it's not reading the defense, or we see some of these times where the defense brings a lot of pressure and he just he holds the ball. It's almost like he doesn't even realize that it's a blitz that the defense is bringing. So it's just kind of like, well, that would have been a sack in a real life game. So there's a couple of concerns for me, but even with that, O'Shea seems pretty high on Terry Wilson. He's pretty confident with him. And so I guess with that being said, we'll kind of see how that shakes out, but I would lean toward Terry Wilson as being kind of that third quarterback option.
The guy that I was really hoping would at least have an opportunity to come into camp and maybe just learn under Zach Collaros was, of course, Taylor Elgersma, and then he got signed by your Packers.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens with that, whether he sticks around, if he's on a practice roster.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, regardless, that won't be for a while, so they move forward. One of the things that, listen, was a topic all year long last year when Janarian Grant walked was the returner position. Are they trying a bunch of different guys there? And I guess as we transition to this first preseason game, who's sort of in the mix for that job? And is any of them, at least in training camp before game action, sort of put themselves ahead of the competition?
Yeah, so the one guy who probably would have been, again, the leader in the clubhouse for this is Peyton Logan, the new running back from who the Bombers got, former Calgary Stampeder. He's now on the one-game injured list. And so he is not really in the running, at least for week 2, to be that return guy. And you can probably expect to see him as the return guy in the punt and the kick return game when he is healthy again. But for the time being, yes, they are trying a bunch of different guys there. It's been Dylan Mitchell, who was another big splash signing for them in the offseason. He's been worked out there. Cody Case, who we saw returning some kicks for them last season for a few weeks, he's been worked out back there once again, and that could be his path to actually making this squad. Kalani Harris, who is a rookie wide receiver, he's been worked out back there. Myron Mitchell as well, back for a second season. He's been worked out back there. Like, they've had a handful of guys who've been worked out at returner here, and it's kind of been interesting because some guys, I mean, Logan feels like the steady hand, and then after that, it feels like, okay, let's been a couple of bobbles, a couple of drops, a couple of here that everybody's getting used. It's preseason, you're not putting too much stock into too much just yet, but there has been a couple of concerning reps from some of these guys, but I would, not that anybody's necessarily standing out, but my gut, I guess, if based on what I've seen, I'd probably lean Cody Case at this point in time, but that's that's cautious and not a very confident, not saying that with a ton of conviction there, but the guy who I'm interested to see, and I don't know if you were going to ask me about impressiveness or disappointments to this point in camp, but the guy who I think really needs to make a case potentially as a returner is Dylan Mitchell, because if there's a guy there's concern around in camp right now, it's probably that guy.
Tell us a bit more about him, because I mean, he came in. This is a guy that's established in the Canadian Football League. You thought, oh, this guy will be, in the mix for significant playing time, and it took him like 2 days, and he's running with the twos.
Yeah. So Dylan Mitchell, purely based on what he signed for, his signing bonus and all that, the money that he's making, you would have penciled him in put him in permanent marker. You would have put him in the starting
Sharpie.
You should have been, right? Day one, he was with the ones, which you expected, and he hasn't been back with the ones since. And at first, Huss, you're kind of sitting there thinking, okay, well, that's okay, because maybe this, like you said, he's a veteran, and we know that he's going to do what he does, and then we can start to ramp him back up and get him along with thrown with Zach and Chris Streveler a little bit more as we kind of ramp up and gear toward the regular season. But then you kind of start to look, and now we're on day 15 or something like that of camp, and he's still practicing as of today, he's practicing with the twos. Yesterday, I think it was with the threes. And you kind of are starting to wonder, okay, well, yeah, he's a veteran, but at the same time, he's also brand new to this offense. He's never caught passes from Zach Collaros. He's never caught passes from Chris Streveler. You'd think it'd be important for them to set up a little bit of chemistry there, build as much chemistry as possible. Not only that, but it's a brand new offense. Never mind the guys who he's catching footballs from, but he's trying to learn the verbiage here, and it's a brand new offense. Wouldn't it make sense to get this guy as many reps as possible with the top offense? So now your mind starts to wander, and you start to think, well, did he come in a little overweight? Is there something between the years that's not working? He's not grasping the playbook as quickly as we thought. Is there character issues? You never want to bring up character issues, but is there something there that maybe the Bombers didn't think that there was something before? So there's all of these different things now with Dylan Mitchell. And quite frankly, the most concerning part for me is that he hasn't looked all that great. Like, it's not like even when he's running with the twos and the threes, he's explosive and popping off. Like, he's dropped a couple of balls. And so I'm not going to sit here and say necessarily, you would think Dylan Mitchell's going to make the team, and you still would think at this point he's going to find his way to the starting offense. He's going to be there. And very well could, once the lights start shining down on him and the games mean something, could he very well start turning things up? Sure could. But at this point in time, I would say if there's a reason for concern maybe around a player right now, it would be Dylan Mitchell, because the opportunity that he's getting would suggest that there's something that's missing there so far as we start camp.
No, listen, very, very well said. I mean, we don't know exactly what it is, but it does seem something's up. And your point about, you can be a veteran, but I mean, if you're expected to be producing for this team, you got to be in there connecting with the quarterbacks and being part of it going forward. So that'll be something we'll certainly monitor. Heading into Saturday, I mean, will it be a regular day of camp tomorrow? Will it be more a walkthrough? And what are you going to be looking for? I mean, when they actually get out for the very limited preseason action that the CFL features.
Yeah. So it is going to be a walkthrough tomorrow. So that'll be a pretty quick day for us and then obviously the Bombers. But yeah, right now from a writing perspective, I'm all about the stories. I'm not rooting for scores. I'm rooting for stories, as you know, Huss. And one of the stories right now, a guy I just spoke with today, Cam Allen, who's a guy who, if I'm going to put as far as guys who have impressed so far at camp, Cam Allen has got to be near the top of that list. Rookie safety. was with the Denver Broncos, hasn't played an actual football game in like 18 months or something like that. He is just itching, and there's plenty of guys like that who are just itching for opportunities, and that's why I love preseason so much. But I think we're going to see, I mentioned off the top, left guard battle between Gabe Wallace and Tui Elliott. Michael Shea didn't confirm it today, but he did kind of hint at the fact that probably going to see both of those guys in this game. And that's when you start to think about, okay, well, this position battle, you can only weigh so much of this, evaluate so much in practice. Let's see these guys in real games once again, and let's see what these guys do. And so the left guard position, how these guys fare against the Saskatchewan Roughriders is going to be crucial, along with that wide receiver spot. How much Jared Stearns do we see? I've kind of penciled him in. I think he starts this season as a starter. And then after that, we kind of figure out, is it Clercius or is it Myron Mitchell who earns that other spot opposite Carrick Wheatfall? And then after that, it's kind of these depth battles. So I'm looking at the weak side linebacker position. I mean, after Tony Jones and Kyrie Wilson at the second level, now you're talking about Michael Ayers. You're talking about rookie Connor Shea. Is Lane Novak? What does he kind of bring to the table? You've got some other interesting stories like Jaden Woodby as well, who's kind of in the mix here. So there is a lot of names as far as depth options goes that I'll be keeping an eye on, guys who are really kind of fighting for some of these depth roster spots. And then, of course, as we just finished talking about, let's see if one of these guys can kind of take over the returner battle position. And also, a really good side note in all of this, Brady Oliveira would be shocked if he plays. Peyton Logan is hurt, as I mentioned, so he's not going to play. That leaves a boatload of reps for rookie Matthew Paterson, who the Bombers traded for on draft day. And he looks like he could be, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but he looks like Brady's a free agent at the end of this season. If the Bombers and Brady can't get something figured out, based on what I've seen in camp, I would be kind of comfortable with Matthew Paterson taking over and being the guy going forward. Powerful lower body and kind of runs a lot like Brady, very north-south runner, but is actually a little bit more fleet of foot. He's 15 pounds lighter than him. Really impressive camp he's put together, and O'Shea kind of just gushed about him a little bit again in today's presser. And so Matthew Paterson is a name that if fans want a skill position guy to keep an eye on, I would absolutely keep an eye on him because he's going to get a ton of opportunity, and he probably will lock himself into that third running back spot out of camp.
Josh, great stuff, man. Really appreciate it. Fill people in on what you've got cooking in the free press as we get closer to the first preseason action Saturday, of course, in tomorrow's Fish Wrap. Yeah, man. Yeah, lots of Bombers happening here, and we'll probably look to stay on that throughout the entire summer. So definitely keep it locked there. And then, like I mentioned before, we're all over Gold Eyes, Sea Bears, you name it, man. We're everywhere. Golf. I'm gonna have to fight Mike and Ken for who covers golf this summer. It's gonna be a battle everywhere. Hey, well, I tell you what, Manitoba Opens out at Breezy. If those guys are on the course, you can come hang out with me. We're gonna do a couple shows out there, and then we'll get the whole gang out and actually swing them sometime out of Breezy as well. Sure. How about that? Yeah, we absolutely should do that. I'm looking forward to that, man. So that'll be a ton of fun, man. And then lots of stuff going on personally as far as personal content, which I'm excited about. I'm keeping busy over here, man. Fill us in on that. Like, where can people find more from what you're cooking? Well, I appreciate that. I feel like it's a shameless plug every time I come on here. So we're here for it. We want to support. You guys are helping us out too. It's always great to have you on. Yeah, man. A few months ago, if anybody's an NFL fan, if you're a football fan listening to this, maybe you're an NFL fan as well. I mean, I started a newsletter not too long ago, a few months ago, Back Bacon Brief, covering NFL every, you like that name? Love it. Back, yeah. I hope you get it. Yeah. So but anyways, got that every morning, 6 days a week. I actually shortened it down to 3 days a week now, just for the summer. I got some other stuff going on, but just something to start your morning with, a little bit of NFL every morning, 500 words. So just something quick, just something to look over. But Back Bacon Brief, and then I got my betting stuff over at the janitor's closet, which I know you're well aware of. So love it. You know what? We'll throw it in the description if you want more info on Josh's pod, the newsletter. We'll have it in the description of this YouTube video, and Remis is going to throw it in the chat as well, so you can jump on that as well. Josh, this was awesome. We got to do this more often, especially with you doing Bombers, but I do want to talk lots of NFL with you as we get close to the upcoming season. Just on the way out, are you disappointed that your Packers were not able to ban the tush push?
No, I'm not. I'm a fan of it. I say if you don't want it, keep him out of third and fourth and short. I don't know if you're going to stop it. I don't think you're. In fact, you're not going to stop it. At least not at a high enough rate. But if you don't want him to tush push, keep him out of third and fourth and short. Simple as that, man.
It is interesting, and I kind of get where the proposal was coming forward, because you can't propel a player up in the air to block a kick or anything like that. So it was somewhat controversial. But what's so crazy is in a copycat league, how everyone has tried something like that. It's the Eagles, and really only the Eagles, that dominate teams the way they do. And at a certain point, you got to tip your cap and find another way to beat them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the closest one that I could point to maybe is Josh Allen with the Bills. Just because Josh is a monster.
A beast. Yeah.
He's a beast. Exactly. And so he's kind of the only guy that I could point to that maybe has a somewhat similar success rate. But yeah, it's Jalen Hurts, man, and the rest of the league as far as that thing goes. It's a weapon, dude. But at the same time, again, like I said, if you don't want him to use it, keep him out of that situation. I'm a fan of it. That's simple as that.
Well, in addition to all that, I'm looking forward to the draft, and you and I, let's plan right now to redeem both of ourselves and meet again in the final after disappointing season for the two finalists the year before.
Let me also just say, and this is an excuse. Sure, I'll use this as an excuse. It's fine, but it's the honest truth. If I get kicked out of a fantasy football playoffs in the first round, which I did, I'm not gonna check my lineup. I'm not gonna check my lineup again. Okay, it's done. I'm out of the money race. I'm not gonna look. So yeah, everybody in our group chat is going and chirping me and saying from first to worst. It's like, well, I wasn't even looking anymore. I had like 3 inactive guys in my final in our last place battle.
Yeah, listen, last place battles are for we're above that. I'm the exact same league. We're above that. We're former champions. This is not about winning 11th or 12th.
No.
We'll cook it up all summer, buddy. Thanks for doing this. Let's do this again soon. Appreciate you.
Sir. Appreciate you guys.
Here's Joshua Frey-Sam. Check out all his work in the Winnipeg Free Press, and the Back Bacon Brief. What an awesome name. Link right there in the description. You can jump on that, and we'll look forward to having Josh on more as we get into Bomber season, preseason action coming up on Saturday. All right, I just mentioned little golf. We will be getting out to Breezy Bend this year for the Manitoba Open. Can't wait that. Let's do our Breezy Bend golf report today. And they are out at the Colonial in Fort Worth, Texas. The Charles Schwab Challenge. What a round for John Pack. Shot a 7 under 63. He's got a 3-shot lead over Patrick Rogers, Rio Hisatuni, Matty Schmid, and Matt Wallace, as well as Bo Hostler. 3 under par includes Akshay Bhatia, Tommy Fleetwood, Webb Simpson. I see Adam Svensson there. No, we got to go down. Scotty Scheffler's 2 under through 8 right now. The heavy favorite for this event. I can't remember seeing a golf favorite as short as plus 240 at Coolbet, but that's where Scotty is right now. He is playing with Daniel Berger, as well as last year's champion Davis Riley, and haven't seen them. So it sounds like Berger's +1, and Riley's below that right now. Canadians in the field. Mac Hughes is 3 over par right now, and Ben Silverman's even. And Adam Svensson, I do believe, is he's 3 under through 9. So a nice start for Adam Svensson right now. We'll pay attention to that. We'll update you on the second round tomorrow at the Colonial here on WST and our Breezy Bend Golf Report. For more information on making Breezy your term long golfing home and getting on the waiting list, talk to Corey Johnson at the clubhouse or find out more online at breezybend.ca. Of course, the Gold Eyes had a matinee today. They lost. They weren't able to sweep the Milwaukee Milkmen, dropping a 7-4 decision, winning 11-5 last night, coming off that great home opener and the win on Tuesday. Fish back in action all weekend long, including tomorrow night, Saturday, and of course the Sunday afternoon game coming up. And don't forget, next week, we're back at Assiniboia Downs, Tuesday and Wednesday. Live racing is back at the track. We're now into just finished week 2. We will look forward to Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and we'll have a date for an ASD night, or maybe a contest night to bring some of you out and join us in the clubhouse dining room as we've done in the past very, very soon. asdowns.com for more information. By the way, speaking of that, Remis, how did you do yesterday in your picks?
Yeah, I had 2 correct ones, but did I win money? Well, I didn't lose money. I think I lost like $3. So I ended up close to even. I won 2 of my picks. That's what happens when you betting on more favored ones. You don't get that big payday like $1 into 1,000. How many times am I gonna bring that up this year? So
hey,
I'm chugging along.
We got to do it again. I don't know whether we'll ever get that one that big, but if you can hit the triactor wheel, you're definitely happy. I actually got off the schneid yesterday.
Oh, you had some winners.
I had 2 wins. I had won $8 on number 3 in the 4th race, and $14.25 on number 4.
Okay.
In the 2nd race. So I was actually up $2.25. So that's nice. Some positive momentum.
Oh.
We'll be back with our picks at Assiniboia Downs next week. You can give them a call. Get a reservation in the dining room. Highly recommended. Amazing prime rib buffet on live racing nights over at Assiniboia Downs. You were mentioning, Remis, that Brendan Shanahan officially gonzo from the club.
Yes.
The Leafs. No more blue and white.
They just announced it 7 minutes ago. Changes to their executive leadership. Here it is. Nice picture. Brendan Shanahan, his contract will not be renewed. There are rumors about him going to the Islanders. And look, he came in, and their organization was a bit of a mess. Remember how they got Austin Matthews from tanking and turned around while they haven't, advanced past the 2nd round, and playoff success hasn't been there, but they've been very successful at getting there every year. And I think there were some hard decisions that needed to be made about players on their team over the last couple of years that they just decided to keep trying it again and again with the same guys, and it didn't work out. And, they decided, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. So we'll see what happens here. And sure, Brad Treliving, they just hired him. He'll still be the GM, right? Interesting where, he changes up the GM. He had Lou, he had Dubas, and now you have Treliving. Shanahan was the guy the whole time as the president role, but now he's moving on. So we'll see what happens there. I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt. We've got Sean McIntyre is going to join us tomorrow. We caught up with him earlier talking about the end of the line for all the Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and of course the Oilers, who are still playing as well. Hey, let me, before we go, hit you with the why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Did last night's Oilers loss change the way you feel about their chances to win the series? And did it change at all the way you think about the Jets' performance against the Dallas Stars? Let us know in the chat. Reem, I have to admit, yesterday's game, as we talked about off the top, was just, I think, further evidence that to beat the Dallas Stars, you need to do a lot of things well, and you better damn well do it for 60 minutes because the Oilers had a great first 40, got into penalty trouble, and that game completely turned around on them.
Yeah, my perception of the Oilers hasn't changed. They can still win, but I think watching that series and you see Dallas do the same thing to the Oilers that was done to the Jets in their series, you thought the Jets could definitely hang with the Oilers. They could hang with any team. They weren't able to get it done. And it was special teams. That's what was won the series before. Dallas on the power play scoring, 3 goals, getting in front of Stuart Skinner. That was the recipe for success against the Jets, and it worked against Edmonton yesterday. We'll see how they respond. And Miro Heiskanen, it was the first game, Huss, that they went 12-6 after going 11-7. He gets his first goal in months yesterday, and that was a huge add. And Scott Arniel had the clip about missed opportunities, maybe some regrets about not winning Game 1. That was one of the games without Miro Heiskanen, and that series was certainly there for the Jets for the taking. They were not able to get it done, and watching it last night, a lot of mixed emotions looking back. When you thought you were over the Jets being out of the playoffs, Huss, you're watching that series. As you mentioned, you're hearing the Stars goal song. You're seeing, reminded of your hatred for Mason Marchment and certain players. He's doing that same BS in this series. Sick of that guy. I don't want to see him lift the Stanley Cup at all. I'd rather see Connor McDavid. So I've put my support behind Edmonton here for the rest of the playoffs.
I've always been a guy that it was not one of these like, we need a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, I always wanted the Jets to be the team that would end the drought. But I'm sort of with you. I mean, there's a lot of guys in Dallas. And, listen, the Jets obviously had a lot of respect. I mean, you heard the Pete DeBoer being mic'd up through the handshake line and Arnie and a number of players saying, go win that cup. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm with you. Like Jamie Benn, the sucker punch on Mark Scheifele.
I don't want to see that.
Afterwards, he was so nice. Get out of here. No, I'm...
Such a good guy, so classy, Jamie Benn Huss in victory.
No doubt. Hey, I see JBM's in the chat. We got to get to our Coolbet lines, and actually, I'm cooking up a little 2-gamer for tonight. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's do fan feedback from Fans First. Brought to you by fansfirst.ca. By fans, for fans, no fees. No fees, period. When you're on Fans First, what you see is what you will pay. And by the way, Winnipeg Blue Bomber games on Fans First this year. So you got a couple extra tickets you need to sell, need a couple last-minute seats. Fans First will be there for you throughout the season. A lot of happiness in the chat that Canada just finally got a goal against Denmark. 1-0 Canada. Phyllis, woohoo Canada. I see Jake, Shanna smell you later on the Brendan Shanahan news today. And spoiler alert, the Shanna plan did not work. Miller time 1980. Don't see Ehlers in Denmark's box score on TSN. Is he not playing? No, he's playing. He right now has 13:36 of ice time right now as Canada has a 1-0 lead early in the third period in the quarterfinals of the World Championship. And a couple other thoughts. There's Phyllis. Watching the Oilers last night made me feel better about what the Jets face playing Dallas. The Angling Oracle game yesterday confirmed to me that Florida will repeat. Oilers will tighten up. Not worried about them. I actually do think they still win the series. And Jake Bolenmoss, only one Canadian team should break the curse, and it ain't the Oilers nor the Leafs, Jake. Right here, Canada's team, the Jets. Although we're all going to have to wait until next year. Speaking of the Oilers, as I said, I'm still pretty high on them winning this series and getting back to the Cup. I think we're going to have a rematch, which means that after losing last night, this is actually a pretty good time to get in on the Oilers if you think they're going to win the series still. They were a -119 favorite going into Game 1. They're now a +150 underdog. And this is one of those things. In best-of-7 series, you can really take advantage of the swings to get in on a number that I think maybe was better than was there earlier. So I'm riding with Edmonton. I still like them to win this series. +150 on the series price. Series price for the Panthers after winning on the road is -244. And the Canes are at +195 right now at Coolbet. I don't know what to say. I think the Panthers are winning this. And to be honest, after thinking that Game 1 was the time that the Carolina Hurricanes would at least get their game and get off to a good start in the series, I'm not taking anything for granted. I think the Florida Panthers are better. They know how much of an advantage it'll be if they can make this a quick series. I think we see a lot of Florida's killer instinct tonight. Plus 113 on the money line for the Florida Panthers in tonight's game. That's where I'm putting my nickel. And we've got Oilers Stars for tomorrow. Oilers plus 105. Dallas minus 124. NBA playoffs. What an insane game last night. I had the Pacers plus 158. I wasn't watching it. I thought it was done. And then it wasn't. What a wild, wild finish in that game. But tonight it's the OKC Thunder taking on the T-Wolves. OKC just seems to get on these rolls and blows teams out of the barn on their home court. I like them again tonight. I'm going to lay the 7.5 on the OKC Thunder. So I think what I'm going to do is get the fellas to throw this up, probably in the combo cards, a little ride with Huss. But we're going to go OKC minus 7.5, and we're going to take the Panthers money line. So try to get a winner in each league, and that will be, just based on where the odds are right now, in and around 320, and I wouldn't be surprised if the fellas give us a little bit of a boost, maybe around plus 350 or so. But OKC, Thunder minus 7.5, Panthers money line. That's what I'm liking tonight. And I would have gotten to some baseball odds, but the Jays are already playing, and they're in extra innings right now, 5-5. Jays fans feeling pretty good right now, Remo. The team's been playing well lately, and they finally had an offensive explosion last night, putting up 2 converted touchdowns against San Diego and a grand salami from Dalton Varsho.
Yeah, we've been waiting for the Jays bats to go. They brought in Anthony Santander to help that in the offseason, and he really hasn't been going at all. So nice to see that for the Jays. As you know, the Jets season is done, and we can turn our focus to CFL, which is Bomber preseason on Saturday. And the Jays, hey, they're 24-24, good enough for second in the AL East. Hey, that's pretty good. Minus 11 run differential. Not going to get it, not good long term. But hey, 24-24, and some really bad seasons. We talk about the East being usually pretty good. Baltimore, they're one of the worst teams. They just fired their managers, 16-32. The Red Sox, I don't know what's going on, what direction they're going in, 25-26. The Yankees.
I couldn't believe how bad Baltimore was.
There's some
Baltimore came in with some high hopes. I remember in the odds at the start of the year, I think they were amongst like the top 5 or 6 teams for the World Series. 16-32.
Yeah,
bottom. But anyways, the Jays got back to 500. Hopefully they can squeeze this win out at 5-5 right now and get a dub and sweep the series. Keep on rolling. Looking forward to actually checking out the Jays with Jake and the Coolbet boys coming up in a couple of weeks when I'm out for the Canadian Open. Speaking of, though, coming up on WST, I know some people were asking about CFL 110. We are going to do a season preview show next Tuesday, myself and Jeff Hamilton, where we'll do one big question for every team going into the season. And then we're going to do a Coolbet Futures special within the show. So we'll look at Grey Cup odds, MVP odds, win totals, which is all up at Coolbet right now for you CFL fans that want to get ahead of the game. Check that out right now. So next Tuesday, we'll have additional content on WST, the first edition of CFL 110. And then the following Tuesday will be our first show of the year for the regular season, where we'll hit all the top stories heading into week 1. And we will be making picks for every single CFL game against the spread this year. Myself, Hammer, wouldn't be surprised if Remis gets in on the competition for bragging rights, and Connor as well. So make a point for you CFL fans that have been wondering what's up with CFL 110. Next week, season preview, futures show the following Tuesday, week 1, and it is on for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, looking to make it 6 straight trips to the Grey Cup this year, right here at Princess Auto Stadium. Again, if you haven't played at Coolbet before, get on over there, use the promo code WST, 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. And don't forget, poker next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Winnipeg time. It is set up right now. If you go into the poker and just put in WST, you'll see it. Lock it in. And Randy River and the rest of you, I'm looking forward to taking another run at the belt. Fell short a couple tourneys ago to Randy in the finals, but we'll be there. We'll have some bounties on myself and Remis. Hopefully some of our friends from EST will jump in there as well. So save the date next Wednesday. And again, we'll have details on all our social feeds for how to enter if you haven't played with us before. I think that's going to do it for us, Reem. Big show tomorrow, though. We'll have Sean McIndoe join us. And get ready for a big weekend. Bombers back in town. We got a Seabears game tomorrow night. And we will have Jeff Hamilton join us. His thoughts on the end of the season. And, of course, looking ahead to CFL 110 and a lot of football content on the show as well.
Yes, big weekend coming up. Bombers, more reaction from the Jets as Extend Ehlers campaign continues. And Seabears in action Friday as well. So a lot going on. Lots to talk about here. Exciting. We're into the offseason. It's exciting.
You bet. By the way, it's your boy Bruce. Yeah, just talking about that Pacers comeback. That was insane last night. I loved it. I'm riding with the Pacers in this one. But hey, congratulations to SGA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Canadian MVP of the NBA, and looking like he might follow up an MVP award with a championship ring, as they're looking very good right now. Up 1-0. I like OKC minus 7.5 tonight, and the Panthers. We'll get that up in the combo cards over at Coolbet. All right, that's going to do it for us. I think Kenny and Rennie are kicking it right now. So we'll do a little raid. Head on over. Say hi to the fellas from WST. It's raid time. We'll send you over to Kenny and Rennie right now. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to all the sponsors making the show happen every day. We'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m., Friday, marbles, and much more tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.